Course. Hello, everybody. First of all, I would like to welcome you to the course Engineering Ethics, Norms and Regulations. In this video, we will have an introduction about the course, also about your task. So first, let me introduce myself. My name Abdullah Nasser. I'm a university lecturer, PhD in software engineering. So without further delay, let's move on to the slide. As I mentioned, in this video, we'll have an overview about the course, which is Engineering Ethics, Norm and Regulations, also about the assignments and what you have to submit in the end of this course. So the course actually is self-study book. So we have here one book, which is Engineering Ethics 2012, the fourth editions. And your job is to understand this book. So you have to read this book and then summarize this book. So here it's more about your assignment. As I mentioned, our main reference, which is the Engineering Ethics book. And we have also another website, which is website for Think. So this actually is Finnish National Research Association. Just also you need to go this website and summarize this website in terms of our topics, which is engineering ethics. Also here, you have to look to the important codes of in your field. So of course, you will see what the code of ethics and then see what's it's related to your fields. So your task actually is to read these materials, especially the first one and the second one, and then summarize them. So for the first reference, which is the book, read the book and summarize it into 8 pages. And the website, Think website, is in 2 pages. You will find the submission link in Moodle, and the grade here is even just pass or fail. So let's now go to our topics, which is engineering ethics and regulations. As you see here, the name is 3 terms: ethics, norms, and regulations. So let's see first in what this term meaning. After that, we will see what the meaning of engineering ethics. So here is the outlines. First, we'll see the definitions of the terms. After that, why do we need to study engineering ethics, the goal of the engineering ethics, and then the origin of the engineering of the ethics in general. After that, there is something called ethical dilemma, and here you have some issues in ethics. After that, some ethics theories, and we end with code of ethics and also example of code of ethics. So let's see now first is what is the ethics. So here is the very simple definition for ethics. So ethics refer to the moral principle and value that govern how people behave or make decisions. So actually you will find a lot of definitions, but here I found this definition is very simple and easy to understand. So the ethics is set of moral principle and the value, of course. So these actually principle, so it's come from the culture, religion, personal belief. So this principle actually, if I give you an example of this principle, is, for example, the honesty. So honesty is to be honest with peoples. You have to be honest with people. So this is a moral principle. So this one actually it's come from the culture or come from the religion or from personal belief. is this moral principle actually, it's not always codified or not always written in the law or regulations. Later we'll see what the law regulations. So not always related. It's just something like is the norm, for example, and you will see it in the next slides. It's just something, it's people used to do that, for example, or something. It's can govern how people do, but without forced by any authority. So this is the ethics, is just set of principle and value. So the norms. So here is the second term, which is norms. So what's the norm? The norms actually is similar to the ethics, but here is informal rules, informal principle, for example, is not written by any governments or by any association. So it's just informal rules and expectations that govern how people behave in practical social group or cultures. So here in this norm, as I mentioned, is not, maybe it's not be first, is not formal, is not forced by any authority. So because something is people used to do. So example of these norms actually is when you meet in some culture, not all the culture, when you meet someone in the first time, people used to shake hand, used to shake hand. So this shaking hand for greeting someone, it's a norm. So the norm actually it's something it's people used to do and believe this is good. So the next is the regulations. So regulations actually is a rules. So here is now the difference between the two terms, the previous terms, which is the ethics and norms, and now is regulation. Is the regulations is a rule put in place by, for example, the governments. So it's something it must be followed. So or the organization, you are working on this organization, so the organization puts some rules. So this is now is the difference between these two terms. And the third one, the regulations is rules or guidelines that are put in place by the governments or other organizations to control or influence the way in which something is done. So regulation can be put into place to protect the public. So for example, in terms of safety, in terms of good surface, so the governments can put some rules to protect the public. Example of engineering regulation may include rules related to the license. So now to practice any, for example, some jobs, you have to get a license, right? You have to get a license. So this is rules. So here, guys, some general ethics principle. As you mentioned here, so, okay, this actually maybe it may apply for many fields, and may some fields have different principle. But let's see what's this ethics, at least then you will have an overview what we are talking about, what's this principle. So for example, when we talk about the honesty, of course, you know what the honesty, and you should be honest with other people in your level, in your we can say in their personal life or in your professional life. So here this is an example of the ethical principle. The second one, which is the autonomy. So autonomy means that everybody have the right to make their own decision, and we have to respect their autonomy or that decision or that right. So the last one, the next one, the third one, which is the loyalty. So which mean maintaining some confidently in some cases. Fourth one is the non-maleficence. So non-maleficence actually you have to make sure that you don't harm any or harm others. Your job, your action, your decision doesn't harm the other people, and this is called is non-maleficence. And the second thing, which the opposite of this, which is beneficence, which is that the individual should strive to make a good things. So there is, don't make bad things to other people, or your action, your decision should not make any harm to other people. While the beneficence, it's you have to make sure that you have to try to make a good things to other people. Justice. So justice, it's clear, means that you should be, you treat everybody fairly. And respect for the persons. We should state that individuals should be treated with dignity and respect. This is some example of the principles. So now when we talk about the principles, means that we are talking about these things. But as I mentioned, there is a lot of ethical principles. It's just an example, and this is a general. Maybe it's applied in some fields, maybe not. Next, personal and professional ethics. If we ask a question here, how we should treat other people, how we should treat other committees, how we should treat anyone. So actually here we can recognize two ethics, and this is the personal and professional ethics. So is the personal ethics, it's how to deal with others in your daily life, so including your, for example, your friends, your member, your classmates. So this is actually you have to treat them based on your personal ethics. While in the professional ethics, which is mean in your business, in your workplace, so that's in that place or in that cases you have to treat the people based on some rules, some principles, and code of ethics. So it should be different how you treat the people, either it's personal or professionals. To share. Okay, an example of the difference between the personal and professional ethics, it's the confidently. So actually maybe in your life, in your daily life, maybe it's unethical to share someone information, right, without their consent. However, in professional life, especially in the healthcare, also in legal profession, so maybe breaking this rule maybe is acceptable because the doctor may need to share some information with other colleagues. Also, the same thing, it goes to the law. So this, in this case, maybe it's acceptable to share the information of your client, but in your daily life it's not acceptable, or at least we can say unethical, to share someone information without his consent. So of course, if you can let me take myself as an example. Now, if you meet me in the school, or for example in the exam hall, and you ask me something about your exam, okay, I will follow the rules. But if you meet me in the city center, of course I will greet you and we can have a cup of coffee. So this is personal ethics and professional ethics. We can say now engineering is professional, because there is another job actually is not professional, like manual labor and retail positions. So this kind of job is not professional because it doesn't have standards, or doesn't have a code of ethics to follow. So why engineering is professional? Actually, engineering is professional because it's require specialized education, training, and skill. And that is, as I mentioned, is different than other fields. Also, engineering actually are expected to have a deep understanding of underlying principle of technology that use. Also, engineering have a knowledge of regulations, law, policies that govern the engineering field. So engineering also must commit themselves to act in the best interest of the society and comply with the code of ethics established by their professional bodies. So as I mentioned, uh, engineering is a professional career. So we have to follow some code of ethics. So later we'll see what's mean code of ethics. What is the origin of the ethics? So now we can see we have list of the ethics. This ethics come from where? So actually, maybe let me jump to the next slide and then come back to this. Okay, actually here we can see is the origin of the ethics even is philosophy, or maybe it's come from the law, or maybe it's come from the religions. So this is the source of the ethics. More details. So for example, when we talk about the philosophy, so this actually it's come from the old philosophy, like ancient Greeks, especially as they mention here, Socrates and Aristotle, and also it's come from the religions. So here, Shinto, Christian, Islam, Buddhist, Hindu. So all of these is the source of the origins. Also, it's come also from so here is the relation or the relation between the ethics and religions. Actually, maybe it's the default things is that anything is religious is ethics, right? Anything is religious is ethics. And the opposite things also is that anything non-religious, it's also should be non-ethics. But also there is something is also we can say in the middle, which is religious things, maybe it's non-ethics. Something it's maybe there's many example here, but I don't want to go to this place. Also in the same thing, there is something is non-religious and ethics. So the second also the relation between the ethics and the law. So here, okay, same to the relation between the ethics and religion. So we can say is anything is the default things, or this is what we have to this is the default, or what we should believe that anything ethical should be illegal, and in the other side anything non-ethical should be illegal. Also there is something in between. So okay, maybe let me give you an example of these things in between. For example, it's non-ethics and legal. Non-ethics and legal. So maybe some governments, they give permit for some industries and to work, and they know that these industries or this factory will harm the environments. So, but maybe they consider some other things. So this is, if you see, this is non-ethical, but it's legal. But okay, some maybe as I mentioned, the government it's consider other issues, not only the environment, and they allow for example, some percent of the pollutions. So now after we finish the terms, which is now the norms, as I mentioned, is the three terms, right? The three terms, which is ethics, norms, and regulation. So we say that ethics is some principles, it's and value that control or that govern the behavior of the people. Norms actually is same, however, it's informal and can be it's for any group of people. Regulations, actually, this is we can see is this is the rules, but it's put in place by the governments, by the organizations, etc. So now let's see what's the engineering ethics. So engineering ethics, actually now you see the principle, the honesty, the respect others, the non-maleficence and beneficence. So these principles actually, when we put it in the place or in practice in engineering, so now we are talking about the engineering ethics. So engineering ethics actually is the application of ethical principle. So this principle that we have talked about into the practice of engineering. So this is the engineering ethics, and engineers have the professional responsibility to ensure that their works are safe, reliable, and best interests of the society. Okay, so the engineering ethics also include considering the potential consequence of their works, as well as the potential ethical issue that may raise. So this is the ethical, or this is the engineering. So the engineering is it's applying the ethical principle in engineering fields. So here some, we can see some topics we should be considered in engineering ethics. So the first one, which is safety and risk. So what do we mean by the safety and risk? Actually, is okay, as engineering, you have the responsibility to ensure that the product or the system that you build or you design are safe to the public. So the second one is the professional responsibilities. Engineering have the professional obligation to provide a competent service to the public. Also to provide a good service. The confidently and privacy, I think this is clear, means that you have to you have the responsibility to protect your client privacy. Conflict of interest. So what I mean by conflict of interest? So actually here, as an engineer, you have to avoid these things. So, but what's this conflict of interest? Of course, now you have your own, or we can say the personal interest, right? And there is another interest which is based on your business or your professional interest. So this is, you have to avoid the conflict between them. When you make a decision, you should not make it based on your personal interest or your personal ethic. You have to make it based on the professional ethics, which is engineering ethics. And later we can see this. Environment responsibility, I think, as I mentioned, engineering should consider the impact of their work on the environments. And the last one is the society. Also, the engineering also should have the duty to consider the impact of their work or their decision on the society. So here, why we study the engineering? Actually, there is many cases happen that lead the engineer society or communities to seriously take this ethical issue in place. Okay, say these examples. So actually, in 1984, there is leaking of gas from this factory, and this is caused the thousands of people. So here, actually, after the investigation, they found out this problem it's happening, or they call it is disaster. It's happened because what? Because poor design of this factory. So maybe they can avoid it. The engineer who made this factory, he can avoid it if he make safe and reliable design, right? So these cases and other cases actually lead the engineer to gain an increased sense of the professional responsibilities. Also lead to awareness of the importance of the ethics and how engineers have far-reaching impact on the society. So this incident and other incidents actually uh, lead the engineer to take these issues, which is the ethical issues, it's seriously. So here actually is the another problem, which is, or another example actually, which is this actually it's happened in Michigan's actually the Michigan state, the Michigan city decide to use the water from the local river, from the local river. But after a while, this is actually this water was not treated well, and this actually it's caused a lot of health problem in for children and even for adults. So this is also another problem which lead the engineer to consider that ethical issues. So here is some why we have to study the ethics. So here the goal of this ethics course is to sense you to the importance of the ethical issue before you face it in your life, also to help you to make a moral decision and act based on the value and the principle, rather than act based on your, for example, personal influence or any external influence. So, and this one actually, when you act based on the principles and values, it's called moral autonomy. So, the moral autonomy is it's the ability to act or to make a decision and act based on the some ethical value and principles, rather than being influenced by external influence and obligations.